Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. Welcome to our day preview for Natsu 2023, this one on Hoshoryu and Abi. Before we start, I'm trying to use different wrestlers every day, so if there's anyone you definitely want to see previewed at some point, or even a specific matchup you'd like to see detailed, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to take requests, and if it won't work for some reason, I'll let you know. Alright, Hoshoryu and Abi. On the surface, this is something of a mismatch, since Hoshoryu leads the head-to-head 5-2. However, Abi's won 2 of the last 3 between them, so let's see how he's turned it around. The first match is from Hatsu 2022, January of last year. Day 8, let's watch it first and then we'll talk about it. Pretty quick. Now let's think about the situation. They've never fought, but Abi is known. Abi does Abi things. So Hoshoryu comes in, he's got no reason to think Abi is going to do anything weird against him when they've never fought before. So he kind of knows what to expect. So let's start with the Tachiai and see how this evolves. So right here we can see Hoshoryu going for a parry with his right arm on Abi's left. Abi is going straight for the throat, as he always does. You know it's coming, so push his arm in, get him offline, and use that to your advantage. From here, Hoshoryu dips to the right. Now he's going for a belt grab. This has been his plan all along. His head has moved to the right. He tried to get outside of Abi's left arm so that he could go in and grab the belt. He is a grappling kind of wrestler. He is not a pusher thruster like Abi is. He wants to get inside and negate Abi's power. Abi, on the other hand, now Hoshoryu is inside, and Abi's got those little T-Rex arms. He's just trying to figure out what he's going to do with them. But he wouldn't have gotten to this point in his career if he couldn't deal with this situation. He's still got some power here. And bang, now Hoshoryu is on the belt. He's grabbing the belt because this is what he needs to do to stay inside. It's not enough that he got there. Abi still has power in this position. If Hoshoryu is just a loose body, Abi's going to have no problem pushing him away. He needs to get a hold of something, and the cloth is the easiest thing and the most useful thing, to keep himself from getting thrown backwards. And here you can see why that's so important. Abi is getting a really good push here. Look at how long that T-Rex arm has become. Look at how Hoshoryu's head is getting pushed backwards. This is from a very, very bad pushing angle. This is from a spot where Abi should not have maximum power, where he does not have maximum power. And yet he's still able to jam Hoshoryu backwards without a great deal of difficulty. But he's not able to shake Hoshoryu loose. That grip on the belt right here is what's keeping Hoshoryu in place. And from here, Abi's not going to have a lot that he can do without some kind of trickery. And now Abi's got no leverage. He's back to his little T-Rex arms. Hoshoryu is barreling forward. What's Abi supposed to do in this situation? Well, he does have this. He does have his little go-to forearm downward push. Abi really likes to do this when he's in trouble. This is kind of his go-to defensive move. It's a desperation move, and it's really hard to make work when somebody is on your belt, but he's going to go for it because he's going backwards and there's really nothing else for him to try. Now against some guys this wouldn't be hopeless. Abi is against the rope, but he still theoretically has room to circle around, and he's got Hoshoryu going down. He's got Hoshoryu on that downward angle. But Hoshoryu is able to brace himself just enough to get the push off and get Abi out of the ring. So this one is very straightforward. Hoshoryu had a plan, he came in, he executed it, Abi didn't have an answer for it. Hoshoryu wins a pretty straightforward victory. Alright, this is from the next tournament, Haru 2022, Day 6. Again, we'll watch the fight first. Abi had a pretty good attack going there, right? How did he manage to not win that fight? So on the Tachiai, it looks like Hoshoryu tries to do the same thing. And why wouldn't he? If he expects Abi to do basically the same thing, why wouldn't he try the same approach? I'll back up a frame or two. As you can see, his hand is starting to go across Abi's arm in the same kind of parry motion. But if we skip forward a couple of frames, Hoshoryu is not parrying now. He's just trying to grab Abi's arm. This is because Abi got out a little bit quicker and he was able to land his attack before Hoshoryu was able to parry it away. We can see here that Hoshoryu had the same strategy in mind, because his head is going to the right. Granted, Abi is kind of pushing it that way, but he was moving in that direction. But most importantly, he's going for the exact same belt grab that he tried to do in their first fight. But this time, he doesn't hit it. This right here is where Abi wants to be. Full extension, his opponent back on his heels, his balance completely off, no stance. This is Abi's preferred attack. He's doing what he wants to do at this point. What's remarkable here is how quickly Hoshoryu recovers. Let me back up a little bit. So from this point, look at how far back he is getting bent. And now we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 frames. He's recovered in about a third of a second. Most guys can't do that. So now we've got Abi with his momentum going completely forward, and Hoshoryu is now braced for it. Most guys, when Abi starts attacking them like this, he just starts pounding them and they go backwards and they go flying. Hoshoryu is ready. And it still doesn't really matter that much. Look, now he's got one foot off the ground. He's sort of leaning back on this foot. He's bent back again. Abi is at full extension with both arms. Hoshoryu is getting his ass beat at this point. Abi is doing everything that he wants to do. He's fighting his fight and it is working. But now watch Hoshoryu's feet. He is very, very off balance, but now he makes a little hop step and he finds the rope immediately. This is ring awareness. It's the kind of thing that a person who doesn't know a lot about combat sports in general might look at that and be like, oh man, he was kind of lucky to hit the rope. No. When you are at this level, you know exactly where you are, or at least you should. A lot of guys don't. A lot of guys miss. Sometimes they step out accidentally, stuff like that. But they know basically where they are. And in this case, Hoshoryu planted his foot. He had the perfect defensive step for this. Abi is coming in. He still very much has the advantage. He is still on the attack. But Hoshoryu here at least has a chance to defend himself. This looks like it's where Abi wants to be. But watch his left hand. It skips over Hoshoryu's back a little bit. He really wants to catch Hoshoryu under the armpit or in the ribs, and he doesn't quite hit. Now, we can't see it on this angle right now, but his right hand definitely lands. He definitely gets a good push there. But this left hand is going to matter in a second. See what I was talking about with that right hand? It is on point. It is exactly where it wants to be. Hoshoryu should be out of the ring. The fact that he is bent back like this and surviving, guys do this. It's not like it's impossible. We do see it, but this is a very impressive level of stability and balance from Hoshoryu. But he should still be gone in a second. Uh-oh. That's a parry. Hoshoryu has gotten his hand underneath Abi's arm and pushed it offline. Now Abi is completely off balance. Hoshoryu is still not in a good spot, but Abi no longer has an attack. He effectively has, maybe he falls on Hoshoryu, but that's about it. He does not have any strikes available to him anymore. And now Hoshoryu has his balance back. This is the first time since the Tachi that he's really in a functional stance. Abi is on one foot. Hoshoryu is pushing him. This fight has completely turned around in the blink of an eye. Now Hoshoryu is in his good pushing stance. He's got great balance. Abi is side facing him, which is no position to defend this kind of thing. And we can see Abi's hand, sort of, again, pixelation. He's trying to push down on Hoshoryu. It's that reflexive defense that he has. But again, Hoshoryu has such a good position, it's hard to see the push down working in any way this time. Obviously, this fight is going much differently than the first one, but this part is the one that looks similar. Abi pushing down, but he's at the rope. He's going out. He has no chance of pulling this off. And Hoshoryu gets the win. All right, this is May 2022, day 7. Felt like they gave us a little more to watch that time, huh? This time we're going to see Hoshoryu adjust his tachi. So at this point, it looks similar. Hoshoryu is, his right hand is up, it's going towards Abi's left. But right in this moment, it comes down. Now, it might beg the question, why would you lower your hand when you know the other guy is about to jam his arm directly into your face, which is exactly what we see happening here. Hoshoryu's entire plan here is to dive directly into Abi. It's not to avoid the initial contact, to parry the initial contact, to get him off balance. It's to simply absorb the initial contact and get after him quickly enough that it can't push him back and he can get inside immediately. Now, you might assume, the way I did, that the whole idea here was for Hoshoryu to go immediately for the belt, but that's not what happens. He just gets a little bit of a grip on Abi's back. Abi's the one going for the belt at this point. Obviously, that wasn't Abi's plan, but it ends up being what he does. Now, looking at this angle, it might be fair to say, well, hold on. If Abi wants to push and push, why isn't he pushing here? Well, we're about to find out. It's this hand right here. So Abi does not want to be part of a grapple with Hoshoryu. Hoshoryu is a very good wrestler, and Abi just likes to jack people up in the face and neck. Hoshoryu is going to win grappling contests 9 times out of 10 with Abi, I should say. So Abi is trying to get free, but Hoshoryu's hand here is not allowing that. Now, if you're in Hoshoryu's position, what you want to avoid is Abi pushing you off, pushing you away. By controlling the elbow like this, you're essentially not allowing Abi to do anything with his right arm that you don't want him to do. Abi doesn't want this, so Abi is beating a retreat. Now, Hoshoryu may not have anticipated the retreat. It's not the kind of thing you see super often, especially the way Abi ends up doing it. But what Hoshoryu wants here is control. It doesn't matter what his opponent does exactly, as long as his opponent can't do the thing that he wants to do. It's also worth noting, if we back up a few frames, that Hoshoryu's got his hand on Abi's back, his right hand on Abi's back. Abi wants to get his right arm free. So in order to do that, he's going to shift his right hip backwards. Watch. You see how his hip is twisting there? Now watch Hoshoryu's right hand as best you can given the angle. Did you see that? It dropped down and it locked in for the belt grip. Hoshoryu was patient. That was the main thing here. He didn't need to get the belt right away. He just needed to secure Abi, not let him push, and Abi would move in such a way that Hoshoryu could grab the belt. It wasn't even like forward-thinking Nostradamus kind of shit, like mind reading. That's just the nature of the beast. As they're moving around, he's going to get a chance to grab the belt as long as he's looking for it. He knows this and he waits for it. Now Abi is just bouncing around, going backwards, just trying his damnedest to get free. He ends up in this position up against the rope. Now you see him do that spin. What he wants to do, so in any combat sport where there's any kind of grappling or clinching, anything like that, if the other person has you in a grapple, any kind of hold, and you want to get free, you want to create space between you and them, either so you can make some, get some kind of leverage so that you can free yourself, pry them loose, create distance so they can't hold on. This is what Abi has been trying to do by going up and down and left and right and running around. He's trying to create gaps, create distance, and it just hasn't been working. This serious hip swivel is to try and snap Hoshoryu off of him. Now, if we back up, we can see that Hoshoryu has gotten his hand off of Abi's elbow. Like, Abi is now clamping Hoshoryu's arm. That's not really a thing anymore, but that just makes them more securely in a hold position, right? So Hoshoryu is fine with this. When Abi pulls his hand up, he goes to the head again because that's his go-to defense. But Hoshoryu, we can't see it, but he is not letting go of the belt. Abi cannot get free. Back in here, that grip is tight. It kind of doesn't matter what's going on over in this general vicinity, because as long as Hoshoryu is holding on, Abi is not going to win this fight. Abi's not going to find a way to get this done. So Abi keeps bouncing back, and at this point, it's just over. He's probably exhausted. Hoshoryu has just run him down. Hoshoryu didn't even really do anything but hold on and not let Abi do what he needed to do to win. And it was enough. It worked beautifully. I just want to say real quick that if the pixelation on the videos is getting hard to look at, I'm using all of the video that I have. Hopefully, if people enjoy this kind of thing, or at least theoretically enjoy this thing, if they can see the video well enough, I will keep doing this, and I will eventually collect enough film that I can stop using the old ones that have kind of crap resolution. So if you enjoy the idea, stick with me. I'm trying to use the best videos I have available to me. All right, this is Nagoya 2022, day 6. Another win for Hoshoryu. Now this looked a lot like the second fight, right? Hoshoryu was getting bent back pretty badly. So what does the Tachi look like this time? So here this looks like another parry from Hoshoryu. However, if we move forward a few frames, watch his left elbow, or his left shoulder. So what he's doing here is faking the parry with the right hand while he's actually pushing off Abi's right hand with his left shoulder. So if he's not using his right hand to parry, what is his right hand doing? He's going for that upward push on Abi's arm. Problem is, he's in a little too deep with his hand. I mean, the armpit is a good place to be a lot of the time for leverage, but right here, if he wants to try and get Abi's hand off of his neck, he needs to push on the tricep or the elbow. Where his hand is right now isn't getting anything done. But okay, that happens. Let's see what happens from here. So like 2 fights ago, Abi's getting that full extension. Now, this hand is turning out to be well placed. He can control Abi's arm somewhat from here. He can pull it back to get a good parry in. He can just push up on the arm if he gets some leverage. But right now he doesn't have that leverage. He's moving backwards. He's getting his head pushed back. His position is not as bad as it was in March. So he's doing better relative to that. But this is still not preferable, and Abi is getting what he wants here. All right, Abi gets another good attack in. What Hoshoryu is doing here, one of his adjustments, and I'm not sure if this was intended or just him making the best of not a great situation, but by having his hand here, Abi's still hitting him. Abi's still pushing his head back, but Abi is having a lot more trouble actually driving his body forward. He's not pushing Hoshoryu physically backwards quite as much. But he's still getting extension on his thrusts, and his game plan is mostly working. Now Hoshoryu gets to take advantage of that hand being there. He planted it in there. Like I said, it's a good place to have your hand a lot of the time, but he wasn't really getting a lot done with it other than preventing Abi from coming forward too much. Now he's getting more of an upward push. He's getting Abi's arm up and away from him. Unfortunately, that doesn't do a whole lot to the other arm, which is coming in and jacking his chin straight back. If you're wondering how Hoshoryu was able to defend the one arm and not the other, because we didn't really have the camera angle, you can see it in his footwork, so we'll back up. So here, you've got Hoshoryu's hand pushing Abi's arm away, but his right foot is forward relative to Abi. So his hand is in a position to do this. With his left foot back, he has to twist his body around, freaking Gyoji wearing yellow. He has to twist his body around to try and get his left arm into the action. It makes it much more difficult to use that arm and hand to defend, which is why Abi is able to get his right hand in with such a good attack. Now at this point, Hoshoryu is in sort of a similar position to March, except not back at the rope. Whatever he thinks of that, maybe he's happier being here, maybe he'd rather be balanced on the rope. This is not a place he wants to be. Now this is something that Abi likes to do. This hand has just been like the claw of doom reaching over Hoshoryu's face. He has not moved it. He just keeps pushing with it. He likes doing this. Abi's tall. Abi's taller than most of his opponents, and he has very long arms. This creates a real balance problem for most guys. Now, as we saw in March, Hoshoryu is pretty good at bending backwards and not falling or stumbling, but this is something that Abi can make work often. But it's not working here as much as he'd like because it does leave him vulnerable to one thing. Did you see that? Let's back up a second. So here we've got Hoshoryu with finally a parry, and Abi kind of left himself open to that. Now that might be a little harsh. That would suggest that he's doing something wrong. This is just how he fights. His fighting style, which obviously is generally quite effective, leaves him open to these things against people who are able to take advantage. When his arm is out there, you can push it away if you can pull together the strength and the balance to do it, which is what Hoshoryu does here. So now Hoshoryu isn't necessarily in a great position, but Abi is all twisted up. He has no push here. He's got to recover. So Hoshoryu's hand is coming down around the left side towards Abi's belt. Now, Hoshoryu being a grappler, he might want to get a double belt grip or something similar to what he had in the previous fight, hand locked around the elbow, something like that. What ends up happening is that as Abi recovers, his arm shoves Hoshoryu's head down. As it does that, Hoshoryu's foot comes up because Abi's really big and strong and it's difficult to stay on your feet like that. And his arm, because his balance is getting completely screwed up, goes up as well. So he just wraps an arm around, or he wraps that arm around Abi's head. Okay, let's see what we can do with this. He's got a hand around the back. Oh no, Abi has defended the belt grab. Hoshoryu does not have a hand on the belt. So he is not in the best position. His hips are back. He wants to be in tighter, but he is in close. Abi does not have a good position for his type of attack. Abi has his left hand around Hoshoryu's shoulder. He's defending with his other hand. He's purely on the defensive, so this isn't bad at all. But what does Hoshoryu do from here? Abi brings his hands down. Hoshoryu brings his hands down. Now, Abi's almost at the rope. Maybe he could push off the rope and start pushing back. But remember, Abi really likes to do pull downs and push downs when he's on the retreat, when he's on the defensive. So his arm comes up and around. He can't get a grip on Hoshoryu, and now Hoshoryu has a clean path towards a guy who just has his hands up and is defending himself as best he can when he has nowhere to run. And out he goes. So we've just seen 4 wins in 4 different ways for Hoshoryu. If you look at the list of Kimarite, there's 2 Yorikiri and 2 Oshidashi, but think about how those fights went. The first one, he hit a strategic parry right off the start, and he got a belt grab and turned that into a win. The second one, he had a remarkable escape from a very, very bad position. The third one, he just hung on to Abi and won through attrition. And now in this one, he showed an ability to stay in control even when the position looks bad, which if your head is getting jammed 2 feet backwards, it always looks bad. But he was never really out of it. He just needed to find a position where he could get that one parry in and turn things around. So if Abi's just got one style and Hoshoryu has now beaten him in all these different ways, how does Abi end up winning 2 of the next 3? So this one's Kyushu 2022, day 14. This was when Abi was coming back from his surgery in September, and these guys were both in the Yusho hunt. That's a win for Abi. It's not a win the way Abi usually gets his wins. So let's take a look. This Tachi actually goes pretty poorly for Abi. You can see here, Hoshoryu gets a little bit of a parry. It doesn't look like much, but it's enough. And what ends up happening is, Abi is not making the same approach. So he normally comes in with both hands high, outstretched for the neck. This time, he's kind of doing that, but Hoshoryu immediately, with that little parry, turns it into a forearm shiver. Now, Abi's left hand is going down and his right arm is going up. But here's the thing that really doesn't work for him. If you've got 2 hands, that's not enough fingers, I realize, that has a certain surface area, but a whole forearm is wider. And yet, this forearm manages to mostly miss Hoshoryu's face. It clips him slightly, but it really doesn't hit him. This Tachi is not good for Abi. So now Abi is all jammed up. He's got the T-Rex pose again. His left hand is just out here doing who knows what. And Hoshoryu is going for a little bit of a nut grab. I know it's not an actual nut grab. Right down the pipe. This is exactly what Hoshoryu wants. So we've already seen 2 fights where Abi got exactly what he wanted and he couldn't pull it off. Now he is in the worst position possibly of any of the fights, barring maybe the first one. Now it certainly looks like Hoshoryu has the grab. But this time Abi is able to effectively defend himself. So he steps backwards, but his forearm comes forward into the bicep. When it does that, Hoshoryu ends up not being able to hold his grip. So Abi's got that going for him at least, but he's still moving backwards immediately, and he doesn't like doing that. Now, we watched the fight, and we saw that he did the slap down, and it worked, and we know that he likes to do slap downs when he's on the defensive, but why did it work this time when it didn't work any of the other times? So here, Hoshoryu has sort of struck at Abi, but sort of missed with the right hand. And now Abi's got a foot back, his balance is forward, he's wide open as soon as Hoshoryu recovers. So it's really a question of who's going to strike first. And given their positions, it looks like Hoshoryu could do that quicker than Abi. Now look at their hand positions. So Abi's are down here. Hoshoryu's are up. 3 frames later, Abi's hands have come way up, and Hoshoryu's have not moved that much. And that leads to this. Abi beats Hoshoryu to the punch. So in here, we've got Abi's arms up against Hoshoryu's neck. And we've got Hoshoryu's arms getting lodged underneath Abi's. So he can't do anything. He's got no attack here. He can't do anything with this. He's got to adjust immediately. So he's gotten used to this with Abi, using his arm to shove Abi's upwards. We can see he's lodged his right arm underneath Abi's armpit, which he likes to do. That's a good position for him. He's freed himself from Abi's right hand. His balance is a little forward, but so is Abi's. They look like they're just leaning against each other, so to speak, and they're going to keep hand fighting. Abi gets a little extension, gets a nice push off. Now, this is nothing new. Like, we've seen him push Hoshoryu back before. And this is how Abi gets it to work. He doesn't go for the head. That's what he was doing before, and it made sense. He was going for the target that is most logical for the position. But what doesn't work with Hoshoryu, at least, is that if Hoshoryu is close enough to get his head grabbed for a pushdown, he's close enough that he's really in a position where he's comfortable. In this case, he got a little extended, his arms were out, and Abi used that recoil method to push him back, snap him forward, and then grab his hands and push him down. Kaboom. Now, like I said, this is the Basho where these two were in the Yusho race. Hoshoryu had lost the 2 before that and fallen behind Abi. And you could certainly look at this like, oh, maybe he was pressing too hard. But when you look at what they actually did, at the movements, at the techniques that were in use, he didn't really make a mistake. He got a really good start. He went after it. It was an unusual position for him and Abi, and Abi found a way to escape. Hoshoryu made a crazier escape in their second fight, so there's really nothing that strange about this. All right, this is Hatsu 2023 Day 7. So that's another one where it looked like Abi was doing pretty well until he wasn't. All right, let's look at this Tachi-ai. Okay, Hoshoryu's arms are underneath Abi's. Was this intended? Hard to say. But if there was a plan here, it doesn't seem like it worked. Abi's got his hands on the neck. And now Abi's back to having his full extension. Hoshoryu is once again not in a horrible position, but certainly not in one that he wants to be in. Now this is just nasty. Hoshoryu is not getting anything done. He has no effective defense working, and Abi just palms his face. This is not the first time this has happened, but it's gotta suck. It can't be fun. Not only that, he doesn't even pull his hand back, he just turns it into a forearm that jams his face the other direction. Of course, by just extending his hand, he's leaving his arm out there, which once more opens that up to a fairly easy parry if Hoshoryu can make it happen. Hoshoryu certainly tries. He's got this hand locked in here. He's trying to push him back. He does have the foot off the ground, so that's good. Abi still seems to be in a somewhat better position despite being on one foot, which is tough to do, but he's got a solid grip on the neck. Abi is not in too much trouble here. Hoshoryu's going to have to get a great push to change anything. Abi just extends his arm again, switches stances, and now he's back in an excellent position. Hoshoryu is not doing anything here. He's mounting no effective defense against this assault. Now here he's got to do something. But he's not able to get in and accomplish anything before Abi's hands hit his shoulders and stop him from moving forward. Now we've got not just Abi's hand on the neck here, but on the other side, it's also happening. So Hoshoryu his head is under Abi's control now. Abi straight up pushes his head off to the side and then just jams it back in the other direction. Abi's feet do slip a little here, but that doesn't necessarily mean much as long as he can keep driving forward. So Abi's feet slipped back, and now his head came down. Having the lower center of gravity is usually good in wrestling, but for Abi, obviously, he likes to use his height. He likes to use those long arms and that size and keep people away from him. So this is not a preferable situation. But he does have a hand on the neck. Hoshoryu still has not managed to assert any kind of control over this fight, so it's okay. So Abi's got a hand on the chest, and Hoshoryu's got a hand on the arm, which, okay, whatever, and you're going to have to watch very carefully because you can't see it very well. Look in this area. Watch Abi's arm. Watch Hoshoryu's other hand land on Abi's arm. See it there? Hoshoryu now has both hands on the arm. This is, I think it's called an ippanzioi if it's used as a winning technique. That's not what happens here. But essentially, he's grabbed the arm with both hands and he's just going to pull. Now he's got Abi completely off balance. Abi was not ready for that. Abi was overextended, fell directly into that, and now Hoshoryu is almost behind him. Abi spins, but as you can see a few frames earlier, Hoshoryu gets the forearm up, and that's all he needs. That keeps Abi at bay long enough for them both to swivel, and now Hoshoryu is in his preferred position. Abi's against the rope. His feet are not in any kind of a defensive stance, and there's nothing to be done. Out he goes. Arguably, this is the fight where Abi implemented his game plan the best, but Hoshoryu still managed to get out of it and take the win. And this last one is from last Basho, Haru 2023, Day 2. Another quick one. This one ended up going to Mono-e, but it went to Abi. Now, before the Tachi even happens, there's one thing that we should pay attention to. Hoshoryu is a lot closer to the line than he was in the last fight. This is going to make a difference. So they start, and Hoshoryu's hands are low again. But when they make contact, Abi's arms are not extended. And look where Hoshoryu is. He is over the middle of the ring. So he has a little bit of a space advantage. That is absolutely not what has happened in any of the fights where Abi has made good solid contact at the start. But Abi has made good solid contact here, and he doesn't have the space advantage. So this is a little bit of a different situation. We've got Hoshoryu's left hand under Abi's armpit. His right arm might be going for the belt. Can't really tell at this point. But let's take it from here. Like we saw, it's a short fight. So here, Abi's got the hands around the neck. Hoshoryu's got the hand under the armpit. The other hand, again, no camera angle, probably in a similar situation, similar position. So we've been here before. Now, Abi's doing his thrusting thing, just going in reverse. He grabs the neck again, and Hoshoryu is pushing up. This is the most important part of this. Hoshoryu is really shoving upwards. It's hard to see in the still frame, but he is really pushing into Abi's armpits. And because of that, he's essentially a lever. With his arms really stiff in that position, he's just tilting back and forth. So when Abi pulls back and those hands are still in that locked position, he can't relax his arms that quickly. So now they're just platforms for Abi to pull down on. He grabs, he pushes, Hoshoryu goes kaflurp, and then Abi lands on, who was that? Tamawashi? I think that was Tamawashi. Real quick fight. This is very interesting to me. Abi is known as a pusher thruster, probably the best pusher thruster in sumo. He has a notorious game, right? He does the same thing to everybody, and yet it still manages to work against person after person after person. He gets winning records at the highest ranks. He wins championships if he starts anywhere below Maegashira 5. How do people stop him? Well, Hoshoryu seems to solve the Abi riddle. You've got to have really good balance. You got to have just good athletic skills to allow you to withstand the assault. Because in 3 of his 5 victories, he was able to put up with a beating until he found a way to defend, push Abi off, and turn it around for a win. He only had control in 2 of those 5 fights. So does that mean we should expect Hoshoryu to keep dominating Abi, or is Abi going to start catching up? Honestly, it's hard to say. If Hoshoryu can routinely win when Abi starts to get the better of him, Abi is not going to win many fights in this matchup. If instead Abi can make some little tweaks and find ways to work around Hoshoryu's attempted defense, Abi could pull this score even pretty quickly. It is noteworthy, though, that Abi's 2 wins have been by pull down. It would suggest that unless Abi is able to turn his attack into something more effective against a good defender like Hoshoryu, Abi may never win this matchup again if Hoshoryu can just keep his head really grounded and not overstretch, not overreach, even in those moments where he thinks he has to, or he's like, oh, I got him. All right, that's it for our preview for Natsu 2023 Day. Like it if you learned something, and I'll see you tomorrow.